From the New York Times, it's The Headlines. I'm Tracy Mumford. Today's Monday, September 16th. Here's what we're covering. The FBI says it's investigating what appears to be another assassination attempt against Donald Trump. Trump was playing golf at his club in West Palm Beach, Florida yesterday afternoon when a Secret Service agent noticed the barrel of a rifle poking through the bushes along the fence line, within shooting distance of the former president. The agent opened fire, but the suspect was able to escape. A witness who saw him leaving the bushes took a photo of his car, and he was later caught driving north on Interstate 95 and taken into custody. It's not clear if he fired any shots while he was at the course. Trump was not hurt. A law enforcement official identified him to The Times as 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh. The Times spoke with Routh last year.
He was actually previously interviewed for an article about Americans who were volunteering to aid the war effort in Ukraine. He had no military experience, but said he had traveled to Ukraine after Russia's invasion in 2022.
Patty Mazzei is The Times Miami bureau chief. When Routh talked to The Times, he described himself as a, quote, U.S. citizen that's helping out. He had a plan to recruit Afghan soldiers to fight in Ukraine, which he seemed intent on, even if there was no real way for him to pull that plan off. Law enforcement said that yesterday when they arrested him, he was calm.
Investigators said they found an AK-47-style rifle with a scope near the property line of the golf course, along with 2 backpacks that were hung on the fence and a video camera, which suggested to law enforcement officials that the man might have intended to film a possible shooting. The fact that an armed man was able to get so close to the former president, again, will surely raise further scrutiny of the Secret Service, which is already facing a lot of criticism from the assassination attempt earlier this summer.
President Biden said he's asked that the Secret Service get every resource necessary to ensure Trump's safety. And Kamala Harris echoed that, saying she was deeply disturbed by the incident. Meanwhile, Trump wrote in a fundraising email that, quote, my resolve is only stronger after another attempt on my life. In a federal courtroom in Washington, D.C. today, lawyers for TikTok will try and stop the government from banning the app, which is used by 170 million Americans. The app's been under scrutiny from lawmakers for years, who've raised concerns that its connections to China pose a national security risk. This spring, Congress passed a law forcing the app's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, to either sell to a non-Chinese owner or face a nationwide ban. TikTok says it's taken steps to address the concerns, like limiting how much user data is sent to China. And it's arguing that a ban would violate constitutional protections for free speech.
This case has drawn a ton of interest across the board from constitutional law experts, and they're viewing this as a landmark case for technology, for foreign policy, and for First Amendment rights in the United States.
Sapna Maheshwari covers TikTok for The Times.
The judges who will be hearing this case will be asking about the government's evidence for supporting this law. They will probably be asking TikTok about its structure and how the company is influenced by the Chinese government and by executives in China. But regardless of how the 3 judges in this case rule, all of the legal experts I've spoken with expect this to go to the Supreme Court. TikTok's role in American culture and American life is tremendous. And it's remarkable that this law is really threatening the future of this app in the United States as soon as January. I think that's something that a lot of TikTok users probably can't fully wrap their heads around. And it says a lot about where our country is in terms of its relationship with China, our use of social media, and how we're viewing the First Amendment in the digital age.
Flooding caused by heavy rains has devastated cities and towns across West and Central Africa in the last few days, leaving more than 1,000 people dead and forcing nearly 1 million people to flee their homes, according to humanitarian agencies. Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and Mali have all reported deadly flooding.
It's really an additional burden to already existing crisis. This region has been facing conflict for a decade. And more recently, we have seen food inflation. Food prices have been skyrocketing.
An official from the UN's World Food Program who flew over the flooded area in Nigeria said he'd seen houses, schools, and hospitals submerged. The bodies of humans and animals have been seen floating in the floodwaters. Even more extreme flooding is forecast for later this year. Research shows climate change is making flooding worse in some parts of Africa. Experts say that overall, people on the continent are experiencing a disproportionate burden from climate change. The continent produces only a fraction of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. The mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, and his inner circle are in crisis as 4 separate federal investigations have now reached the highest levels of city government. Prosecutors have been tight-lipped about their cases, but there's one investigation into whether his election campaign conspired to get illegal foreign donations, another one into a possible bribery scheme involving a consulting company, and also what appears to be an investigation focused on a nightclub security business owned by the former police commissioner's twin brother. The swirl of legal troubles has destabilized the administration. On Thursday, the police commissioner resigned under pressure, and 2 days later, the mayor's chief counsel abruptly quit. One person familiar with her thinking told The Times it's because Adams wasn't following her advice on personnel matters. Adams himself hasn't been accused of any wrongdoing, though last fall, FBI agents seized his phones and his iPad. He says he's done nothing wrong and that he's focused on serving New Yorkers. Still, the scope of the investigations into City Hall is unprecedented in New York City's modern history. 2 state lawmakers have called on Adams to resign, and he's facing a hotly contested primary election next year. And finally,
welcome everybody to the 76th Emmy Awards. Yeah. Also known as broadcast TV's biggest night for honoring movie stars on streaming services.
The Emmy Awards were handed out last night in Los Angeles, with father and son Eugene and Dan Levy, of Schitt's Creek fame, hosting the show.
But if it goes well tonight, my name is pronounced Levy, not Levy.
And if things go south, my name is pronounced Martin Short.
Hanging over the Emmys was the reality that the TV industry's been contracting. Networks and streamers have been slashing projects. The number of shows submitted this year in the drama and comedy categories plummeted. Other categories didn't even have a full slate of nominees. Still, there was the red carpet and the glitz and the glam, and a new record holder for most Emmy Awards for a single season.
And the Emmy goes to Shogun.
The Japanese historical epic Shogun has now raked in a total 18 Emmys, including for Best Drama. It's a major breakthrough for a foreign language series. 70% of the show's in Japanese. The show's co-creator, Justin Marks, thanked the studios for taking the risk.
You guys greenlit a very expensive, subtitled Japanese period piece whose central climax revolves around a poetry competition. I have no idea why you did that, but thank you for your faith in this incredible team.
Other foreign language shows like Squid Game have won a handful of Emmys in the past, but nothing close to Shogun's blowout last night. Since the pandemic, where people were holed up at home and looking for more and more shows to devour, Americans have been showing a greater interest in TV with subtitles. Those are the headlines. Today on The Daily, how 3 undecided voters are narrowing in on who they think should be president. You can listen on the Times audio app or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Tracy Mumford. We'll be back tomorrow.